But let's turn to our top story tonight, and it is the response to the COVID vaccine drive that is our focus. We will, in a short while from now, have two of the country's top doctors answering all the questions that viewers have sent in for us. On this second day, what we are finding is heavy queues outside several medical centers, especially in Mumbai. Hundreds have turned up at these vaccine centers. As a result, many have had to wait for hours to get their turn. Many of them said they walked in for the vaccine after failing to register on the COVID website. Are these all teething problems? Because the government is asking citizens to be patient. What is the ground reality on India's big COVID vaccination drive? It's our top story tonight.
If there ever was hesitancy to take the COVID vaccine, it has not been seen here. This is the Bandra Kurla Complex Vaccination Center in Mumbai. The center saw a full house on the second day of the world's biggest vaccine drive, with senior citizens queuing up early in the day. Many had to brave the sun before they could reach the tent. The authorities were caught off guard by the number of walk-ins. 65-year-old Vimla Pandey, a Bandra resident, had already waited for 2 hours when we met her.
No, I couldn't get because my computer is not accepting. My mobile is iPhone, so they are not accepting it from iPhone. So what should I do?
Salil Deshpande came with two senior citizens, both above the age of 80.
दोनों 80 साल के थे, एक मेरी माँ है और एक मेरे बहन की सास है. सो वो दोनों 80 प्लस है और हम लोग वही रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे थे कि आप 60 के बजाय 80 वाले लोग को पहले ले लीजिए. लोग यहाँ पे चक्कर आ रही है लोगों को, ये लोग मैनेज नहीं कर पा रहे.
This queue goes on till the center where the entire vaccination program is going on. The police had to be deployed to control the crowd. They were walk-in, they were registered, they were beneficiaries from different age groups, they were accompanied by their children for support, and somehow the police had to manage and send people. Queues had to be made, things had to be arranged.
While beneficiaries complained of technical snags, the government maintains there are no serious glitches.
There were no glitches, but what had happened was that the people were looking for an application, for an app. So they were looking for an app, and they did find an app which looked quite similar to the COVID app or something, and they started, working on that, and that app was not meant for this purpose. We are not putting up any app. The Arogya Setu will provide that functionality, or you can go onto the COVID website.
While thousands of citizens are patiently waiting for their turn across the country, one politician had the vaccine home delivered. Karnataka Minister B.C. Patil took the shots at his house. He later defended his actions.
ನಾನು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕರೆದು ನಾನು 100 ಜನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾದು ಕುತ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ 100 ಜನಕ್ಕೆ 1000 ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ತೊಂದರೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜನಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಕಾಯ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕುಂದಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಡೀ ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆ ನಿಂತೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಜನನೂ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅರ್ಧ ಗಂಟೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕು. ಅದು ಆದಾಗ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಜನನೂ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ತಪ್ಪೇನಿದೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ.
The VVIP treatment, according to the minister, has prompted a clarification from the centre.
Doctors and nurses can go at someone's house and get this done?
This is not allowed in the protocol. It has come to our notice. We have asked for a report from the state government.
While initial response seems to have overwhelmed the registration portal, leading to a surge in walk-in requests, the government has urged people to be patient. Bureau Report, India Today.
So lots of people have written in with their queries on the vaccination drive, which is why we are going to today at the top have all the FAQs answered by two of the country's top doctors, Dr. Randeep Guleria, Director, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, someone who's part of this COVID task force. As always, a pleasure having you, sir. And Dr. Hemant Thacker, Mumbai's leading physician, is also joining us. I want to come to you, Dr. Guleria, first, because as you saw in our story, one of the concerns is overcrowding. How do we resolve overcrowding? Long queues outside several COVID centers, is that going to become a problem? Do you believe it's a temporary situation?
So I think it's a temporary situation because currently there is a little bit of confusion as to how do you register and what is the mechanism of getting registered on site. Once people get an idea that you need to register and you can take an appointment, I think it will sort out. It seems that everyone wants to gets the vaccine today or tomorrow rather than waiting for a few days. It's not going to be possible to vaccinate everyone. So from a situation of vaccine hesitancy, we've moved to a situation of vaccine eagerness. And that has created a little bit of a teething trouble in the beginning. But I personally feel that over the next few days it will resolve. I think people need to just be a little bit more patient and realize that everyone cannot be vaccinated on the first or second day. Some will have to wait for 5 to 7 days. And we will, I think the system has a mechanism where an appointment can be given, which may be 5 days from now. So
it's interesting the way you're putting it, because it's a bit like rushing in for a big Hindi cinema film. First day, first show, there's vaccine eagerness at the moment. You're advising people to be more patient. The second question also to you, Dr. Guleria, is related in a way. Is this entire vaccine drive too tech heavy? A number of people, especially senior citizens, are complaining. They say they are not au fait with technology, and therefore they feel, could this be more decentralized rather than driven purely by technology?
So although it is based on a technological platform, it is user friendly, so it is tech based, but there's also a system of coming and onto the vaccination site and being registered there rather than having to go onto the website. So if you have your iCard and you are meeting the criteria, you could go and get yourself vaccinated. The first few days are always going to be a little tough, but I think this will smoothen out. And then people could come maybe in the afternoon once the people who have registered are vaccinated, and then direct vaccination could be done of individuals who report to the site. And I think in rural India, this will become more and more important because they are not going to be that tech savvy. You will have to have volunteers who reach out to the elderly, help in bringing them to the vaccination site, help in getting them registered. This is happening in various colonies also. The RWA, various other associations have also come in to really try and help those who are not tech savvy. So I think this will happen, and I am very confident that as a country, we will surmount this and be able to really get all our elderly vaccinated in a short span of time.
The reason I'm asking you this is because someone has just sent me a message. They spent about 6 hours. They tried to do a walk-in registration at one of Delhi's top hospitals. It took them 6 hours, and finally they went back home because of the long queues. Do you worry that this could put off people from the vaccine, the fact that there are these long queues?
So like you said, it's like the first day, first show. And I would just tell everyone that let's be a little bit more patient. Everyone cannot be vaccinated on day one. If you were to wait for a few days, things will smoothen out and you will be able to come and get yourself vaccinated. Depending on the increasing demand, I'm sure more and more vaccination sites will be open. We could even look at having a large mega vaccination site, which could be like in a stadium or in an indoor auditorium, where multiple vaccination sites could be open, which would help as far as this is concerned. This will evolve over a period of time. And I think trying to vaccinate the entire elderly on day one is not going to be possible in any country.
Let me take the next question to Dr. Thacker, because, Dr. Thacker, you deal directly with patients. Why can't people pick their vaccine? Many are going and to these various centers and saying they don't have a choice over the vaccine. And some are asking me, why can't we go to our GP with whom we are more au fait, with whom we have a comfort level to take the vaccine? Why should I go to a hospital only?
So the first thing is, I'd like to sing the same tune that Dr. Guleria said. This Rajnikant starer is not going to shut down after 7 days, and neither is Rajnikant retiring. You've waited for so many months, there's no need for you to make a beeline. The probable one suggestion that I have to the government authorities is that you have to fix the time for walk-ins. I cannot go to the passport office for a walk-in passport. I cannot go and file my tax documents except online. So you have a fixed time for walk-ins, and the registration desk at the center should allow the relative of the elderly patient to make an appointment for the walk-in, if not that day, a little later. Which brings me to your question. Just because my favorite GP round the corner is not inoculating, or my private hospital where I always go to is not inoculating, doesn't mean you can't go to one of the mega centers. Right. As a doctor, I took mine at a municipal center where the service was exemplary. The reason why probably GPs should not vaccinate to begin with is the rare chance of an anaphylactic reaction. After inoculation, hospital authorities would like you to wait for half an hour. In that half an hour, they are fully prepared for any reaction of any sort.
Right.
So the question doesn't arise of going to a private GP.
Okay.
Private center, yes, if the center is approved after due inspection by the authorities about utilizing it. Now, your other question about the buffet table. You have both the vaccines on the table. They are both desserts. Whether you take one or the other depends on availability. Remember, what you need is a good 70-odd% protection. What does it matter whether you get it from Covaxin or Covishield? You're not looking for a numerical boost. Remember, chickenpox vaccine we've all lived with gives about 65, 70-odd%, but it is successful. Suffice to know that your aged immune system is getting a good nudge by any vaccine to prod the immune system to produce antibodies so that perchance if you get the infection is tamed, the infection is tempered, and you don't need hospitalization.
Doctor, I just want to quickly get a comment from you, Dr. Thacker, as a link to that, because the next question that viewers have asked, does one vaccine cause more reaction than the other? What has been your experience on the ground?
I am happy to say that neither of the two Indian vaccines have we got any report of severe adverse effects. Like we had a thunder from the Scandinavian countries about Pfizer, which has now settled down. Across the world, across the country, neither Covaxin nor Covishield has had any exemplarily odd reaction except the routine expected reaction like fever, chills, joint pains, etc.
Okay.
So I would say take what you get. A bird in hand is better than two in the bush. What you get now, you must take now.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all to give me shorter answers because we've got so many questions. Dr. Guleria, this is an important question. Should those who've recovered from COVID take the vaccines? A lot of people are asking, if they've recovered from COVID, should they still take the vaccine? What's your advice, doctor?
Yes, I think you should still take the vaccine for 2 or 3 reasons. There are many people who have a mild infection and they do get some protection with the immunity and antibodies developing, but they tend to wane quickly. And therefore, you do need to have vaccine as a protection or as a booster phenomena so that your antibodies continue to stay high. So if you've had COVID in the past and it's been 4 to 6 weeks since you've recovered, I would strongly suggest that you take your vaccine because it will give you added protection. And we know that a large number of people have mild infection or are asymptomatic. And there is some data that their antibody response is not that strong. Therefore, everyone should really come forward and take the vaccine.
Dr. Thacker, will children be safer once elders are vaccinated is the next question. It's an interesting one because the focus is on the senior citizens, but many senior citizens, grandparents live with their children. Will the children be safer if their grandparents have taken the vaccine?
Absolutely. The more people that get inoculated, the greater the chances of producing herd immunity. Children get milder disease. And children need more masking than vaccination. So the answer to your question, yes, if the grandparents and senior citizens are protected and the children look after their protection, there should be no worry.
The next question to you, Dr. Guleria, can those who've taken the first dose mingle freely? And this is a question that someone, a relative of mine has asked, can I travel freely after the first shot? So you take your first shot, let's say, sir, in early March, your next one is after 28 days. In the intervening period, can you move around freely, travel?
No, I don't think so. After your first shot, you still have to have COVID-appropriate behavior for the simple reason that the first shot is not enough to give you the required immunity. And at the same time, you are still prone to getting infection. So wearing a mask, having physical distancing, washing your hand are equally important. And I'll go on to say that even after your second shot, and when 14 days after your second shot, when you have a good immune response, COVID-appropriate behavior will still be there, not only for yourself, but to protect your family members, because you may be protected from getting severe illness, but you can still get a mild illness or be asymptomatic and have COVID infection, and you can give the infection to others who have not been vaccinated in your immediate surrounding areas. So therefore, even if you've got yourself vaccinated, COVID-appropriate behavior is there to stay for quite some time.
Dr. Thacker, is there a category which shouldn't take the shots? UK and US have advised some people not to take the vaccines. Is there a category of people who you would say don't take the vaccine? I have a friend who has just said if a person has severe allergic reaction to all analgesic drugs, swelling of eyes, breathlessness, is it safe to take the vaccine?
No, the category which I would like to exclude is anyone who has had an adverse reaction to vaccines in the past because of the vaccination content in itself, the diluent content. But if you're allergic to, say, NSAIDs or analgesics, there is no real contraindication for vaccine. But remember, if you go to a large center, if you have allergy to, say, sulfur drugs or allergy to analgesics, you can take the vaccine and stay there for the given 30 or 60 minutes to see that the anaphylaxis doesn't occur. But the absolute contraindication is allergy to any previous vaccine only.
Okay. The next question is an important one, Dr. Guleria again. How long does the protection last? Many people are asking, is this something, will they have to take a vaccine every year according to you? Or is this a protection for just a few months, sir?
So that's a tough question because we don't have follow-up data for many months as far as the vaccination is concerned. Remember, the vaccines have been around only for around 2 to 3 months, and therefore we need a more detailed follow-up data of a large number of people. Based on modeling studies and what we know, vaccines will definitely give you protection for at least 8 months to 1 year. It could be even longer as we go along. A lot depends on multiple factors, including how the virus mutates and what type of variants develop and how they sort of change as far as the vaccine is concerned, whether they develop a vaccine sort of escape phenomena or an immune escape phenomena. But the vaccines will give you protection for at least 8 months to 1 year. And after that, depending on how things evolve, we may need to have an annual vaccine as we have for influenza, that we have an annual vaccine as far as influenza virus is concerned.
Okay, that's an important answer that you're giving, and I want to link that to you, Dr. Guleria, again, because you are involved with the COVID task force. Why is diabetes on its own not listed as a comorbidity? A lot of Indians suffer from diabetes, and they're saying, why can't I take the vaccine? Why is it not listed on its own? Why do you need diabetes with other ailments before you can take the vaccine now?
So diabetes is listed, but diabetes which is really requiring insulin or your diabetic control is not bad. You could be a diabetic who is only on diet modification, and therefore that is not a very high risk factor. And therefore, when we are trying to be more precise, I think diabetes is included as a standalone risk factor, as long as it's a significant diabetes for a number of years, you're on insulin or you're on multiple drugs to control diabetes. But there are diabetics who have a very mild rise in blood sugar, which is well controlled with just diet modification. They get excluded in the first priority list because we need to balance the number of doses available to the number of people we need to vaccinate.
Can, Dr. Thacker, can elders with breathing problems take the vaccine? A number of elders who have breathing problems, should they have no problem taking the vaccine?
I'm assuming the breathing problem is either because of lung or heart. Yes, there is no problem as long as there are no active breathing problem ongoing. A patient with active bronchial asthma or in heart failure cannot take it. But a person who is used to some degree of breathlessness and is well stabilized must go either on his wheelchair or however and take the shot, and must stay there for the required 30 to 60 minutes, but not a contraindication.
Dr. Guleria, why is the list of comorbidities limited? People have high blood pressure, but according to the list, you need high blood pressure along with other ailments again. So is it because you wanted to restrict it to those who you felt were prioritized in this particular phase?
Exactly. So if you were to look at the absolute number of people who had even, let's say, mild, well-controlled hypertension or well-controlled diabetes, then your numbers will become really large, and that would really create a problem that you may have those who actually need to be vaccinated getting left out, and those with milder disease getting vaccinated first. So a lot of the list has been created keeping in mind what are the chances that someone with this disease will have a severe infection or could die because of COVID infection. Based on that, the priority list has been created, and it is not a sort of something in stone. It's something that will change with time as we have more doses available and as we move along the vaccination process. So this is, as we've started with, let's say, people over the age of 60, and then we'll bring it down to over the age of 50. Similarly, the list will expand over a period of time once we're able to cover the top priority group, and then we are able to bring it down to some extent.
So basically you're saying be patient again. Dr. Thacker, should epileptic patients take the vaccine? This has been sent by someone, a colleague of mine.
If the epileptic patient is over 60 or he has additional comorbidities between 45 and 60, he should take it. Prima facie, epilepsy alone, like in a 30-year-old man, is not an absolute indication, but epilepsy is not a contraindication at all.
Will the vaccine drive at some stage become door-to-door? Daljit is asking on social media, Dr. Guleria. Will at some stage it become door-to-door?
I don't think it will become door-to-door because of the fact that we need to observe people, and we do know that there can be some side effects, including anaphylaxis, as was mentioned. Therefore, you may have vaccines which, once you have, let's say, a good amount of supply and the demand is less, it may be available off the shelf, and you could then get it at the local dispensary or at the GP at that point in time, once we have enough data to show that it's safe, and the chances of anaphylaxis are very, very low.
So could that be about 6 months from now, doctor?
That depends on the number of doses that we would have at that given point in time, and we may have more than one vaccine available. In 6 months from now, we may have maybe 4 or 5 vaccines that we could choose from, and if we have enough doses, then one could have the luxury of choice and of being able to take it at a nearby center.
Dr. Thacker, this is someone who's just sent me a question again. My mother is 65, had an allergic reaction to sulfur medicine. Is it safe for her to now take the vaccine?
Absolutely. Sulfur medicine, like I answered before also, sulfur or penicillin, there is no problem. Just that after the vaccine, if the patient needs anything, as usual, do not take sulfur. But sulfur allergy is not a contraindication. She must take the vaccine.
And Dr. Thacker, another one for you. Can people on blood thinners take vaccine? For a person on blood thinners for the last 4 years is asking this question. And which vaccine should that person be taking? Is there a preference?
Now, people don't understand the word blood thinners very well. The common meaning for blood thinners is what is commonly used as antiplatelet agents, which is aspirin and clopidogrel and things like that for heart, blood pressure, diabetes. Those are also blood thinners. And then there are the anticoagulants. So people on blood thinners like aspirin, etc., definitely take it. People on blood anticoagulants like heparin or certain oral drugs like warfarin, etc., they have to ask their treating doctor as to whether they should miss a dose or 2 or time the vaccine accordingly. But again, anticoagulation has to be weighed out and is not an absolute contraindication for vaccination. But such questions are tailor-made. They are not en masse. So I don't want to say yes to anticoagulants before I know the whole history, and their treating physician will be able to enlighten them. But again, I will add, anticoagulation is not an absolute contraindication.
Dr. Thacker, since you're a physician, answer this also. Can diabetics with uncontrolled sugar levels take the shots? Is it wise to take the vaccine now or wait for a fortnight?
My question is, what were you doing for 8 months while the vaccine was being prepared? Why did you not control your sugar? So I agree. Go back to school, get your sugars, pull up your socks, come back after 15 days. Because you waited for your vaccine all this time and let your sugars go awry. So please, discipline yourself and come back after 15 days. Agreed.
Okay. Dr. Guleria, you mentioned about other vaccines. Someone is asking, when can we expect other vaccines to be approved? I presume they're referring to Pfizer, Moderna, possibly other vaccines out there. Will that not increase supply, and will that eventually lead in even those below 18 getting the vaccine at some stage, doctor?
So 2 questions. One is that we already have trials going on in India for various vaccines. That doesn't include Pfizer and Moderna, but we have Dr. Reddy's lab has already completed phase 3 study of the Sputnik vaccine, and they've already approached the DCGI for emergency use authorization. Cadila is also having a DNA vaccine, which is also in phase 3 trial. So these two would be the ones which seem to be would be available in India at an early stage. Pfizer and Moderna have to apply for regulatory approval and have to go through the standard protocol of doing a bridging study to show that in the Indian population, these vaccines are safe, and then logistics has to be worked out. So that is something that needs to be done. But it may be possible a few months down the line that they apply for this, or Johnson & Johnson does that. So things are bright, but in the near future, I think these two, that is Dr. Reddy's laboratory and Dr. Cadela's lab, will be able to get it. As far as younger than 18 is concerned,
yes,
there are now trials being done even for the Bharat Biotech vaccine, and I'm quite confident that in the next few weeks or coming months, we will be able to vaccinate a large number of younger age group people, because these vaccines are basically safe. We just need more data to reassure ourselves that safety and efficacy is also there at the younger age group.
You know, because the fear, doctor, which is being expressed, and this is a question that has just come in, Dr. Guleria, fears of vaccines reaching the expiry date, are they valid? Will vaccines get wasted if they aren't given speedily enough?
No, I don't think so. This has already been looked at by the government, and they are very clear that the number of doses that are currently available will actually be used up much before the expiry date, and then they will have to have a constant supply of newer deliveries occurring from the manufacturers as we go over the next few months, because this has to be a continuous process.
Right.
So that is, its expiry will not be an issue in the coming few months at least, or for this year at least.
Dr. Thacker, a parent is asking, my child has spinal muscular atrophy. Can she take the vaccine? Is it safe for them to take the vaccine?
Yes. Spinomuscular atrophy is not a contraindication, and when the child's turn comes, the child must take the vaccine.
Linked to that, I am on Folitrax 10 weekly for arthritis, Dr. Thacker. Can I take the vaccine, is a question being asked.
So if you're on Folitrax, I need to know what indication you are on for it. But having said that, you must consult your rheumatologist or physician, and he or she will explain to you how your response to the vaccine could be slow, or maybe could miss a dose, and then plan it. But again, people who are taking Folitrax, there is no contraindication for the vaccine.
Dr. Thacker also asked to you, can a cardiac patient with a stent take a vaccine, or someone who has just had a bypass surgery?
Absolutely. A cardiac patient with a stent can take the vaccine, and even the bypass patient can take the vaccine. The rider always is, don't take what I have said straight away at face value. Just go back and check with your physician, because I may not know the whole story of what else you have. But prima facie, stented people and bypassed people must take it, can take it, and should take it.
Dr. Guleria, you answered this question. Will we have to take vaccines every year? I think you suggested you may have to. Am I correct? That's paraphrasing what you said, because that's a question asked. But linked to that, someone is asking, is the second jab necessary? After the first jab, is it absolutely necessary for me to take the second dose, Dr. Guleria?
Yes, it is, because when we start looking at the vaccine, the first jab is what we call the prime jab, which is the primer, and the second jab is the booster one. So unless you get your booster, your antibody response is not going to be that high, and it will tend to wane very quickly. So you have for the first injection or the vaccine is actually to prime your system, prime your immune response, and then when you take the second jab, it really gives a boost, and your neutralizing antibodies, your T cells and your memory cell get stimulated enough so that it's long-lasting and more sustainable.
So linked to that, Dr. Guleria, my friend Mr. Ganpati is asking, the popular recommended gap between two shots is 8 weeks. Will I miss mine if I duck the prescribed 28 days? Do I have to take it in 28 days, or can I sort of spread it over, say, 8 weeks? Is that the maximum?
So the minimum is actually 28 days. It can be done up to 6 weeks, and and if it is for some reason that you can't come, let's say on the 28th or 29th or 30th day, you could even take it later. But it's important that you take it. The current approval in our country is up to 6 weeks. There is some data that for some vaccines, you may even delay it up to 8 to 12 weeks. But we need more data from the vaccines being used in India and globally to be able to say that this is something that we need to do as a policy decision. But
it is remarkable the number of people, it is remarkable the number of concerns people have. Someone says, my one kidney has been removed. Am I safe for this vaccine, Dr. Thacker?
Absolutely. In fact, because you have a single kidney, you have a comorbidity, you must take the vaccine.
And I'm also being asked by Diana Edulji, the cricketer, should thalassemia patients take the vaccine, doctor?
Absolutely. With the cricket bat in your hand, you can go and score that century which you have done. Take the vaccine.
One final question, Dr. Guleria and Dr. Thacker. You first, Dr. Guleria. It's an interesting question. Is the consumption of alcohol allowed after the jab, or should I be a little careful between the two jabs?
So this is something that a lot of people ask. Alcohol per se should be avoided, but if you want to have a drink or two after having the jab, after 2 or 3 days after the jab, it's not an absolute contraindication, but one should be careful, and I don't think you should really overdo it.
Okay, final word to you, Dr. Thacker. Also, do you believe, therefore, that all these apprehensions, there are a lot of concerns. People seem, should they just go out and take the vaccine, end the vaccine hesitancy, and as Dr. Guleria put it, let the eagerness be matched by patience, you'll get your turn.
I think, Rajdeep, your show today has put the vaccine hangama to rest. This is a routine vaccine which everybody has been used to, like other vaccines in the past. There's nothing extra special about this, just that the halo of COVID has blown it out of proportion. As your turn comes, as your app clicks, please go there. Don't stand in lines. Okay. Whether you get it today or you get it after 10 days, go and take the shot. And don't think that the mountain will come back to Muhammad as far as you're getting the vaccine at home. Right. You have to go and get it. I only meant it semantically in English without any other reference, that go out and take your vaccine when your turn comes.
You know, I just have to ask this at the end. A friend of mine, again, a colleague asking, either of you can take this, sir. My grandfather is 97 years old and a heart patient. Is it safer for him to go to the hospital for a vaccine or keep him at home unvaccinated? Dr. Guleria, should he stay at home or get vaccinated, even if you're 97?
No, he should go and get himself vaccinated. He is in the high risk group, and he has if he gets COVID, he has a high chance of getting severe infection. And now with our cases less, and it's not that you're going to a COVID ward to get your vaccination. The vaccination sites are quite separate from the COVID area, and therefore he should go and get himself vaccinated. It's very, very important.
I think net, both of you are saying that this is a moment for Indians to end their vaccine hesitancy. We are a country which is remarkable in our production of vaccine. Hopefully supply will exceed demand, and thereby this initial Rajnikant phase or the box office phase where people are rushing will be matched by a gradual process of extending it to all. Dr. Guleria, Dr. Thacker, you have been wonderful as ever in answering all the questions of our viewers. I really appreciate your joining us. Thank you both very much. We'll come back to you maybe after a few weeks as the concerns continue. Thank you so much for joining us on this special.